That seems to be the message or the tone adopted by the government. Now, not only has Bharat walked the talk when it's asked Canada to bring down or recall at least 40 diplomats to bring parity between the size of the Indian High Commission in Canada with that and make it commensurate with that of Canada in Bharat. The other aspect it's also saying is that it's set October 10th as a deadline for this recall to happen. Also, government sources telling CNN News 18 via Group Editor Security Manoj Gupta that New Delhi is mulling cancelling OCIs of individuals who indulge in extremist activities, and we will withdraw this privilege, especially around on nations which are refusing to cooperate in action against persons of interest for Bharat. Troublemakers, students who are going there on student visa to study but are actually part of these extremist groups and stirs and are being seen outside the High Consulate, etc., High Commission, etc., they will also be acted upon. Very, very clear that this should not be allowed, this will not be allowed, and such misdemeanor will not be tolerated. Meanwhile, let's focus on the Asian Games, where Bharat continues to do well and continues to add medals to its kitty. Can we do better? Of course, the expectation is. But from track and field, there is so much of positive news coming through. Annu Rane claiming gold in with a season's best throw of 62.92 meters in the final. Parul Chaudhary winning gold in the women's 5,000 meters with a timing of 15.14.75. Men's 800 meters, India's Mohammad Afzal finishing second in the final, getting silver. Overall, the tally for Bharat now is 15 gold, 26 silver and 28 bronze medals. We need to add more to the gold kitty. Well, dil mange more. Meanwhile, Big B and Rajinikanth are reuniting. Amitabh Bachchan and Rajini, the Talaivar, coming together after 32 years. Rajini's 170th film in the making will star these two superstars, ladies and gentlemen. And the Nobel Prize in Physics, three scientists, Pierre Agostini, Ferenc Krauss and Anne Huyle, have been rewarded. The award has been given for their experimental methods that generate attosecond pulses of light for the study of electron dynamics in matter. Congratulations to them, and we should have more Indians in that Nobel list. We need to really focus on experimentation, research and development and innovation. Science, that's the way forward, as the Prime Minister says. Meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to set up the first debate on this edition of The Right Stand. It's all about the Chinese clique, the allegation to baiting Bharat. That's where it's all boiling down to. Stay with us.
No notice at all, no prior information at all. They just landed up in the morning.
देखिए, मुझे जस्टिफाई करने की जरूरत नहीं। अगर किसी ने गलत किया है तो उसके ऊपर जांच एजेंसियां काम करती हैं।
BJP is scared of real news and BJP is simply like run away from the real facts.
तो हम पत्रकारिता के साथ खड़े हैं, पत्रकारों के साथ खड़े हैं और इस कदम की कठोरतम शब्दों में निंदा करते हैं।
Under the scanner for allegedly receiving funds from US millionaire Neville Roy Singham for pro-China propaganda in Bharat, the homes of several journalists and employees linked to online portal NewsClick were actually raided by the Delhi police. Now, over 100 locations in the Delhi NCR and Mumbai were raided by Delhi Police Special Cell after they received information from the Enforcement Directorate. And according to the Delhi Police source, a list of names of people who were to be raided was actually made, and they were divided into three groups, A, B and C, in fact 3 categories. NewsClick owner Prabir Purkhayastha, along with the journalists, were actually questioned, and during the raids the cops discovered dumped data from laptops and mobile phones of the journalists of the news portal. Now, apart from these, firm associated with activist Teesta Setalvad, Bhima Koregaon accused and the CPIM IT cell were also searched. The raids were conducted on a case registered on the 17th of August this year under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA, very stringent section, and other sections of the IPC that include the UAPA 153A of the IPC promoting enmity between two groups and 120B of the IPC criminal conspiracy and some other UAPA sections, Section 16 Terrorist Act, Section 17 Raising Funds for Terrorist Act, Section 18 Conspiracy and Section 22C Offences by Companies. The India Alliance has actually come out and accused the NDA government of a witch hunt, while the government has defended the crackdown and said it's about the sovereignty of Bharat and not merely about freedom of speech, which also comes with reasonable restrictions as deemed under the government led by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Meanwhile, let us also tell you what the Enforcement Directorate trails or the investigation is about the entire money trail. The ED, this is what it's claiming, that Neville Roy Singham and a Chinese sympathizer of the CCP in China, the Communist Party of China, CCP, worldwide media holdings 9.59 crore, Justice and Education Fund 27.51 crore, the INC GSPAN LLC, that is 26.98 lakhs, the Tricontinental Limited Incorporated in USA 49.31 lakhs, and the Centro Popular Demidas Brazil 2 lakhs. Now all of this money through these companies was routed to this entity, that is NewsClick, and they paid Bhima Koregaon accused, CPIM IT cell and Teesta Setalvad. So this money was routed here and from here it was paid to these entities. Over a span of 3 years, all these companies have links with Neville Roy Singham. They are also looking at FDI transfer of 9.59 crore in April 2018 by way of subscription of shares of NewsClick from a company named Worldwide Media Holdings. Officials revealed that the company shut shop soon after the transfer of funds. The Enforcement Directorate has also revealed to News 18 that from NewsClick the money was diverted, like I said, to these accused and these entities. As NewsClick probe is unraveling, the Delhi police source has also revealed to your channel how there have been no answers on several fundings. Now, they've allegedly received 10 crore FDI from an American company, reportedly failed to give proof of the work done for that particular company. 20 crore has been transferred marked as export remittance claims. Export remittance, that's the ED's claim. The ED is saying funds to upload content to People's Dispatch portal. The firm's owner has been accused of taking 1.5 crore for maintenance, quote unquote. Firm reportedly hired an unqualified electrician for the work. The employee allegedly received 52 lakhs from a company. The firm's employee accused of links with the CPI. The INDI Alliance bloc condemning this entire raids on the journalists, calling it an attack on the freedom of speech. But the government has defended the move. It's about the sovereignty of Bharat and not about freedom of speech. Meanwhile, NewsClick funding push by China and assault on our sovereignty as per government sources. So-called journalists paid to spread Chinese propaganda, important to secure evidence and go to the root of the matter. So these are the need to look at every record to ensure that there is no tampering. So the larger question is, ladies and gentlemen, is this a Chinese clique to bait Bharat? Is there really some ajibaji? Do the provisions of UAPA really apply? Or is it a witch hunt as is being claimed by the opposition? Anand Ranganathan, author and columnist, join us this evening. Sanjay Jha, political analyst, and Tuin Sinha, national spokesperson of the BJP with us. And we'll also have Abhijit Majumdar, consulting editor, First Post, joining us in just a bit. Don't see him on the wall, so he should be joining us in a bit. Namaste and Jai Hind, gentlemen. Tuin Sinha, you're being accused, the government is being accused of a witch hunt. राशन पानी लेके न्यूज़ क्लिक पर चढ़ गए आप. Why?
Namaste, Anand. Namaste to everybody. I hope, every well-meaning Indian would agree that the sovereignty of the nation is of far bigger significance than the perpetual victimhood cry of a few compromised individuals. And these are habitually compromised individuals. The issue over here, the NewsClick issue, involves a deadly cocktail of Chinese deep pockets, corrupt corporate interests, plus a set of individuals who we sometimes refer to as urban Naxals. But look at the glaring, anomalies and the willful discrepancies in the 3 years that NewsClick was in existence between 2018 and 2021. 28 crores transferred to an entity which had no defined model of business. The shares were subscribed at an elevated rate of 11,510 per share merely to ensure the transfer of money from abroad. 1.55 crore was given to an electrician. Some amount of the money transferred was given to Gautam Navlakha, the chief accused or the main accused in the Elgar Parishad case. No, but there are larger issues over here. And I think until a proper and a thorough investigation is complete, we will never get to the bottom of the case. When I say bottom of the case, Neville Singham has had many exchange of emails with Prakash Karat, including in the immediate aftermath of the Galwan Valley. In one particular email, he talks about the great reception which CPIM's hagiographic account of Mao Zedong has received in China. Now, this reeks of a very murky relationship between the Communist Party. But more importantly, when you talk of anti-India propaganda, what were the 3 main issues on which propaganda was carried out between 2008 and 2021? First, it was Rafale. Who was the Indian politician who was constantly spreading falsehood on the issue of Rafale, and he had to eventually also apologize to the Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court, for falsely attributing certain words to the Supreme Court? We know the answer. The answer is, the Congress Party. Number 2, the issue of vaccine cynicism, the vaccine hesitancy. Again, some of our opposition leaders and these individual so-called journalists or compromised individuals who on the same page. They were spreading the same kind of misinformation. And finally, in 2021, on the Galwan issue, they were trusting the Chinese, what was published in the China Daily or another, the Morning Times over there more than the account of the Indian Army. So I think there are very clear indications that we need to get to the bottom of the case. A lot of it needs to be unfolded. And I think, this is just the beginning. Any well-meaning Indian should support this rather than crib about the victimhood narrative.
My question is, you may want to look at the source of funds and say it is dubious, but does following a particular agenda or a propaganda against the government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi amount to UAPA sections being invoked? I'm going to push you there, Tushin Sinha. Answer that, and then we'll bring in Sanjay Jha and Anand Rangala.
Well, it's about whether these entities were receiving a certain diktat from their boss, which is Neville Roy Singham, because he apparently shares his office with a Chinese media group, the Mako Group, whose stated agenda is to tell the Chinese story. They are masters in spreading Chinese propaganda across the globe. So I think, when you directly take your dictations from him, and there are many instances, like I said, believing the Chinese papers more over the stated position of the Indian Army. What does that amount to? Deliberately spreading cynicism about an Indian company, Covaxin, which has an excellent track record, including generating the first vaccine for removal of rotavirus way back 2 decades ago. So I think there was a very clear, motivated agenda of these journalists, and eventually, let the law take its own course. Let the investigation agencies do a thorough investigation. Why should anybody be scared of it? We have seen cases, I don't know whether Abhijit is present over here, we have seen cases of, journalists being haunted for no rhyme or reason. Recently, Abhijit Mazumdar faced a similar FIR for no reason absolutely, except for an article. We have seen my friend Arnab Goswami has been in jail for 8 days. So a mere investigation of a few hours, why should it rattle these people if they have nothing to hide?
Sanjay Jha?
Anand, good evening. It's good to be on your program, and I'm very happy to be on this platform on this topic. It's very interesting that the BJP spokesperson before me said my friend Arnav Goswami. Fascinating. I like these public confessions. But let me get down to answering the more fundamental points of our conversation. Since we are talking about the Chinese, I would like to ask the BJP a few questions as well. Have you heard of a gentleman called Chang Chung Ling, who is, by the way, very closely associated with the Adani Group and was also charged under the DRI in 2014? Please answer that question. Where is that? Is that an investigation going on? Or has he already got a clean chit like Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi? Point number 2. Who are the Chinese investors in the PM CARES? Kindly make a full public disclosure. There is enough speculation and a lot of it is already published and in the public domain. You can't fool the people of India. Point number 3. You know, Anand, it's ridiculous that the BJP comes here on the program mouthing a whole lot of border dash while India's trade with China is at a historic high. I mean, this is a party that uses the China bogey to destroy and attack the civil society infrastructure in India, while it's hunky-dory in doing business, trade and commerce with the Chinese. I mean, how duplicitous and hypocritical can you be? Point number 4, a very interesting data. Since 2014, nearly 400 cases of sedition have been filed by this government. Okay, using obviously the harshest UAPA, etc. Guess what is the conviction rate? 3%. Point number 5, very interesting. You will find this very interesting, Anand, because you've been part of media. In the Media One case, which was overturned by the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court told Mr. Modi's government, please stop using the bogey or the canard of national security to violate fundamental rights of individuals and organizations in this country. That is the Supreme Court telling the government of the day. Point number 5. We all know about how recently you have found cases, especially I would say the cases of the CBI, the ED and the income tax attacking the opposition. Do we not know the Reporters Without Borders, one of the most respected institutions in the world, has rated us as 160 on 180 on the World Press Freedom Index. I mean, India is not a democracy. There is an undeclared emergency. We are a democratically elected dictatorship. This government is scared. You remember, I can give you a couple of more examples and then I'll stop and hear some other people. Outlook, Anand, you got to look at Outlook because you are part of the media industry. Outlook put out a cover story saying, missing, about the Mr. Modi's government missing in action during the second COVID wave. Guess what happened? The entire Outlook editorial staff was counted and Ruben Banerjee was forced to actually resign. We all know Karan Thapar, we know a number of such cases. I have made my opening statement and I will make following
Sanjay ji, only this from any political party to talk about them batting for freedom of speech and for supporting journalists and their freedom of expression is a little too rich. Be it the Congress party, be it the BJP, be it the Trinamool Congress, be it the DMK, any political party does not like people who question them. Yours truly is part of a list. Yours truly is part of a unsaid ban which from a very, very democratic party for the last 6.5 years. But yours truly continues to ply his profession. So these are realities, sir. But I would only like to point out that there are no investors in PM CARES because it's a fund, it's a charity trust. So there are only donors. So you cannot use the word investors. You can question the number of Chinese donors to PM CARES. That is a fair question to ask, Sanjay ji.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's that's the only point I'm just saying. Not investors, they are donors. The rest you would understand where I'm coming from.
Fair enough.
But quickly, Anand Ranganathan, yes, I'm testing your patience, but allow the BJP a quick rebuttal to the Congress and then I'll come to you, sir.
Good evening, Anand. Look, the very same folks outraging today were totally silent when non-BJP governments, Kerala, MVA, then in Maharashtra, Bengal, Tamil Nadu, were and are ruthlessly arresting, banning, including you, filing FIRs against tens or dozens of journalists, including Abhijit Majumdar just 2 days ago is going to come on your panel. Ask him. And for NewsClick, they wake up. Besides, shamelessly following Beijing's orders or Arunachal on COVID, on Galwan, honestly, the only redeeming feature of this propaganda factory called NewsClick was that this trash was digital and that no trees were cut to print it. Or quite honestly, I wouldn't even have wrapped my samosas in it for fear of all that toxicity bleeding onto them. To paraphrase Kennedy, Anand, ask not how these journalists became frauds. Ask how these frauds became journalists. The NewsClick and all such assorted Chinese and leftist funded media outlets are methane spewing landfills of lies, fraud, selectivity, employing the dregs of the society, unemployables, urban Naxal academics, Nepo dynasty doormats, and ISI stooges. But if there is one thing one has learned over the years, it is that you cannot cure these propagandists. They are like the Rakt Beach. Their every drop of blood spawns more of the same. They survive only because some geriatric jellyfish hobbling around in Zimmer Fames 1,000 miles away and dreaming of a rose-tinted revolution throws some pennies in their piss pot. Question is this the only such mental asylum in India spewing venom? The answer, Anand, is no. There are dozens of such outlets. Has Modi banned them or thrown them all in jail? The answer is no. In fact, NewsClick is a kindergarten crash compared to what a Chennai-based Gobi Manchurian dishes out every day. Please understand, from the fake church attack to Justice Loya to Rafale to selective lynchings to Ayodhya judgment to hijab, they have been exposed every single time, but every single time they brazen it out. In the garb of being virulently anti-Modi, they are anti-progress, anti-human rights, anti-everything. Their stand on farm bills, CAA and 370 has proven this. And as far as their revelations that their funding comes from China, you just have to analyze their coverage of two news stories that have heavily involved China in the last 3 years, Galwan and COVID. These dragon-loving Chipkalis were so unbelievably pro-China and anti-India on both these stories, Anand, that it beggars belief how they could think they'll pull it off. When every sensible person, including our armed forces, were telling the truth about China's criminality in Galwan, these Mao lovers were openly siding with China. Their so-called expert defense analysts were tight-lipped when China occupied 640 square kilometers of eastern Ladakh during the UPA. A fact reiterated by UPA's own foreign secretary. They were tight-lipped when China managed to make 600 incursions into the Indian side between 2010 and 2013, including in 2013 when the Chinese entered 28 kilometers deep into our territory at Dapsang. They remained silent even as our trade deficit with China, $1.5 billion in 2004, climbed to $37 billion by 2014. NewsClick's analysts were then saying that Galwan, the same Galwan that Modi was being accused of losing to China, that same Galwan was under Chinese occupation before 2014 as quote. Since 1962 war, China has extended its control over the entire Galwan River, unquote. They were reiterating that the McMahon line and the LAC, unlike the LOC, remains undefined at most places and is categorized under differing perception that even the status quo is disputed by both sides. And so these transgressions are historical. But in 2020, they flipped faster than a gymnast. And when the entire world, Anand, was blaming China for COVID catastrophe, these dunderheads were totally silent about China's criminal loan and lying about India's COVID deaths and vaccines. Just 30 seconds, trust me. All their Modi hate and irrational anti-India analysts works in Modi's favor, Anand, because irrational criticism of his policies allows him to shift focus away from rational criticism of his policies. And these fools don't get this because they don't realize that you can run hate on journalism, but you can't run journalism or hate for long. And as far as my good friend Sanjay Jha saying the Chinese connection to Adani, does he know the difference between People's Republic of China and Taiwan? There is a Taiwanese connection between Adani, not the Chinese one, Sanjay. So please know your geography and history.
See,
Let me respond to him.
yeah, please. We've got Abhijit Majumdar, if you'll allow me, because he's got now suddenly, because of the soon after his FIRs, not just writing, his bandwidth has also now become compromised. Abhijit Majumdar, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Anand. I can hear you, Anand.
Was NewsClick baiting the current Bharat and the current government, or is the current government baiting NewsClick?
NewsClick, my point is, where will they draw the line? I mean, it's okay to be critical of the PM. It's okay to even hate the PM of a country. It's fine. But where do you draw the line? You take and the way, if you look at the way, I mean, at least what the allegations show, that the way the money was brought in by inflating the shares of NewsClick from 10 rupees to I think 1200 rupees or something like that, and crores of rupees coming in a in the most shady, clandestine manner, and there is direct quid pro quo. Anand, just before me, just listed out the kind of egregious pro-China stance these these outlets, especially NewsClick, had taken during COVID, during the anti-CA farmer protest. In fact, during our tussle with China on the border, and they were absolutely parroting China. Now the point is that, is it only restricted to NewsClick, or is it a much bigger web web of influence that we are looking at? Does it extend to some of our leading politicians who have openly taken the Chinese line, who have repeatedly lied about China's incursions, etc., who have almost spoken like the spokesperson of the Chinese Republic of of the Communist Party of China, sorry. And the Congress Party has not yet revealed.
We've just got news coming through. Apologies to interrupting you. Prabir Purkayastha and Amit Chakrabarti have been arrested. So the owner of NewsClick in India, Prabir Purkayastha and Amit Chakrabarti, both of them have been arrested. That's the update coming through. We'll try and get to a reporter for more details in just a bit. But this is the latest coming through, that they have been arrested. So if they have been arrested, they have to be arrested on certain grounds. Something must have been found, some incriminating material has been found for the arrest to be shown. Anand wanted to say something. Yes, Anand.
Very briefly, Anand, look,
Sanjay ji, coming to you after Anand Ranganathan. Please bear with me. Yeah.
Thank you, Sanjay, for bearing. No, just a couple of points here. Number one, I would like my good friend Sanjay to answer why dozens of journalists of, you can say, non-left dispensation are being ruthlessly arrested, including one panelist out here, Abhijit Da. FIRs filed against them, and there is complete silence by the fraternity, including the Editors Guild. But suddenly they wake up. I have nothing against any news outlet drawing a Chinese line, honestly. In fact, there were celebrations in Chennai when the suspects were NewsClick, because oh my God, thank God it's not us. I won't name that newspaper, Anand, but you know it. The fact of the matter is, the question out here is not about siding with China on terms of writing editorials. Right. The question is, did you do any illegality? Was there money laundering? And you listen to Abhijit Da, you listen to Tuhin, there clearly is share inflation, there clearly is money laundering. So that is the issue. Not arresting journalists for heaven's sake or
the arrest. See, there are two points. Anvit is joining us. Anvit, why have Prabir and Amit been arrested?
See, what the police have been saying is that because all these questioning that went on for 8 to 10 hours, and the technical evidences that the police have extracted from the gadget, from the laptops, hard disk and cell phones that had been recovered, police have reached a conclusion that they could have an involvement. And also, one update on we are getting that all those who were questioned, they were questioned on the lines of the riot that had happened in Delhi. They had been asked about the farmers' violence, the farmers' protests that had taken place, and they had also been asked about various factors on what was their line of reportage and what was their funding basically that has been in question. So these were the line of questioning, and at least what the police are saying now is that at least 37 male suspects have been questioned at the premises, and nine were the women who have been questioned, and all the digital devices, documents, extra have been seized, were collected, and they are being sent now for examination. Before sealing them and before putting them before the court, police have extracted all the data that they wanted to, and they have based on that, based on the scientific evidence, is what the police is saying, that even even though proceedings are still going on, they have said
Right.
that so far 2 accused, Praveer Purkayas and Amit Chakravarti, have been arrested. But police have said that the further investigation in this case is on, as many other people
Right.
are still being questioned and the questioning is continuing.
Right, I've run out of time here. Thank you for that update, Anvit. But we promised Sanjay Jha a quick response. So 30 seconds, Sanjay Jha. Apologies, we've run out of
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Thank you, Anand. Very, very quickly. It is very ridiculous, in my opinion, if not altogether funny, when the right wing and the supporters of the BJP quote the New York Times. To them, I'll make a kind request. Please Google New York Times and Narendra Modi and India's press freedom, and you will see some very fascinating articles. Point number 2, very important. My dear friend Ranganathan talked about China and Taiwan. I don't think he's aware of geopolitics. India recognizes what is called as a one China policy. I think he should do his homework.
No, India has
before
never
he comes
officially
on a
recognized
program.
it, sir.
No, 1 minute. 1 minute.
India has
The third
never
point.
officially
The
stated
third-
one China, never backed it, and India recognizes Taiwan, and it also congratulates Taiwan on its foundation day. Yeah,
Well,
yes.
well, I think I have a problem.
Yeah,
when
come
we
on.
talk about
Sorry,
this.
please,
Don't interrupt, Anand.
but
Don't interrupt me. My third point. Disha Ravi, a 22-year-old girl, was accused of sedition by this muscular 56-inch ki chhati government during the farmer agitation. This is the kind of government you have.
Sanjay ji,
to be honest, this is
I have.
what you could see.
My
This is
apologies.
Anand,
I have
can
to.
I come in?
I've run out of time. I have to wind up because the next conversation is something that all of us must listen. While we squibble, we quibble over political ideology and points of view, can we compromise the interest of our country just to settle scores with a political opposition or a differing ideology? I'll leave you with all those questions. When we come back, I request you all that once you come out of this debate, please stay back and listen to this couple. For 9 months, they have stood for the tricolour, they stood for the Sikh community, they've stood for India, and look what they have been subjected to. And they're fighting this battle alone. A family that's been threatened and is being forced into penury because they stand for Bharat and they stand against these extremists in the United Kingdom. Nobody is helping them. Listen to their story when we come back.
Any passerby from entering or kind of attacking the building. So it was a barricade on the pavement that was put there, and the Khalistani protesters were kept on across the street. So on the other side, they kept on chanting and Indian slogans and threat and intimidation tactics for the Indian diplomats. But that is something that brings to the fore the issue of entire Khalistani nexus, which is kind of being allowed to operate in certain countries like Canada, UK, US and Australia. These are 4 countries where issue of Khalistani terrorism has been very vocal and kind of threatening for Indian diplomats. In the recent past, India has raised the issue with all of these countries, while Canadian authorities, for obviously a reason, domestic political reason, they were reluctant in acting against these terrorists. We have seen some assurances coming from Australian government, US also saying that they will look into the issues of Khalistani terrorists and they do not support any violent group in the name of freedom of speech and expression. London authorities also has given assurances to the Indian government, especially ever since earlier this year when some of the Khalistani members tried to breach into the building of London High Commission. One of them also pulled down the Indian Tiranga and tried to disrespect it. In this scuffle, one of the diplomats was injured as well. So it became quite a very flared up situation, and UK authorities did realize the fact that there is a clear threat and violence and intimidation from these Khalistani terrorists, and they are no more just a social or political activists trying to raise their voice for some cause. They are real violent extremist agents, and there has been some sort of security that has been extended to the Indian diplomat and Indian communities also there. But despite all these, we continue to see a rise in threat on social media. Various platforms of social media are also trying to propagate Indian diplomats as a part of India's larger conspiracy or larger network that is kind of doing extrajudicial things to these Khalistani terrorists. In fact, the Indian High Commissioner Vikram Doraiswamy's name was also put on a social media poster, and he was blamed for the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar earlier this year in the month of June in one of the Gurdwara in Surrey in Canada. And these are the tactics that we have also seen happening in Australia, where the high commissioners were threatened and intimidated by these Khalistani terrorists. So clearly India has raised the issue with certain authorities, but we'll have to see how much of these countries are actually going to work on the ground to stop and check these Khalistani agents from going ahead with their terror and threat activities against Indian diplomats, because the issue is now very flared up with Canada in the background. UK authorities also needs to keep a check on these Khalistani violent agents, or the bilateral relationship will clearly have a repercussion, as we have seen a huge diplomatic face-off that is already going on between India and Canada, and Indian government is not taking the entire allegation or entire blame game or diplomatic game lying down, and that could very well be the case with other countries as well, if these countries or these elements in those countries are not kept under check by the authorities or the administration in those countries. As the India-Canada bilateral relationship is very much on the downhill because of the Khalistani issue, when Canadian side has alleged that Indian agencies' role were behind killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a dreaded Khalistani terrorist whom Canada thinks that he was a political activist. Now another front in Khalistani terrorism has opened in London as well, when Indian High Commissioner Vikram Swamy was stopped from entering a Gurudwara in Glasgow. He was there to take part in several cultural activities, and he did meet some of the eminent personalities there also. And one of the engagement that he had was to go to the Gurudwara in Glasgow, where he was supposed to take part in the langar, and he was invited there by the Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee there. But somehow 2-3 people from the Khalistani sympathizer group, they got to know that Indian High Commissioner is reaching there, and they rushed there. They tried to disrupt the event inside the Gurudwara also, and then they rushed out at the car when it was parking in front of the Gurudwara, and they asked the High Commissioner to stop and go back. We could see in those videos when the driver was about to open the door for the High Commissioner, but because of the threat and intimidation by these Khalistani goons, he gets back to his seat and turns around and goes back. Meanwhile, we also see that Vikram Swamy, the High Commissioner, tries to lock the car from inside and stop them from opening the car door. It was quite a threatening situation. India raised the issue with the British authorities and the Foreign Office of UK. What happened next was that another Khalistani protest that was planned in front of the Indian High Commissioner in London. But this time, the British officials were pretty alert, and there was some security measures that was also implied there. A barricade was put on the outer perimeter of Indian High Commissioner building in London, and the High Commissioner's building in London doesn't have a huge or long campus that will stop any passerby from entering or kind of attacking the building. So it was a barricade on the pavement that was put there, and the Khalistani protesters were kept on across the street. So on the other side, they kept on chanting and Indian slogans, silently threat and intimidation tactics for the Indian diplomats. But that is something that brings to the fore the issue of entire Khalistani nexus, which is kind of being allowed to operate in certain countries like Canada, UK, US and Australia. These are 4 countries where issue of Khalistani terrorism has been
Ladies and gentlemen, it takes great courage to stand up to goons, to extremists, to elements who are out to threaten you and somewhere subjugate you or put you under pressure to succumb to their will. It takes a lot of courage, but it also takes a lot of conviction to stand up to those who are wrong and stand up for your country. Joining me now is a couple who have braved these extremists, and they have a very unique name for them, and I'm going to ask them only to say what they call them. But they have stood up to them. And more than about 8 to 9 months of intimidation, ladies and gentlemen, if not more. Harman ji, Khushi ji, namaste. Jai Hind, and thank you very, very much for coming. And
Jai Hind. Ram Ram ji.
And you've come here on a very short visit, but you've taken the time to come and have the chat with us. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks for calling.
Let me first ask you, what has happened and since when?
This January 23, my daughter saw some videos online that some Sikhs are vandalizing Indian flag, abusing people, and doing very silly stuff. And she asked me, are they Sikhs? Because she never saw any Sikhs stooping to this low level. And she asked me, what's Khalistan they're asking for?
तो तब तक इसके बारे में कभी बातचीत नहीं हुई थी?
No. Even my wife is from Punjab. She never knew what is Khalistan. She came to know when I told them this January what is Khalistan. She asked me a question, and because I do some videos, funny videos on social medias, so I told my daughter, okay, no, forget the funny videos, let's do something serious and post something for the community. I don't know it was my mistake or what, but she stopped me. But I posted a video saying to all those Khalistanis, I call them Khalistanis, that's a separate stories. I told...
So from Khota, from the word Khota,
Khalistanis. I will tell you why later on. I tell my, on the video post, that these people, they left India long time back. This movement was dried down because that was forced by some motive for their own profit. And many innocent people, Hindus and Sikhs, were died at that time for around 10-15 years. Every day, lot of killings, innocent. And these people are starting those tactics back again.
This is what you explained to your daughter. ये आपने अपनी बेटी को समझाया?
ये समझाया कि वो दोबारा से देश शुरू कर रहे हैं कि हमको ये खालिस्तान चाहिए. लेकिन मैंने कहा उसको, जिसको खालिस्तान चाहिए, खोतिस्तान चाहिए, आप लोग भारत आके अपना हक मांगो अगर आपको हक लगता है, क्योंकि आप यहाँ सुकून से बैठे हैं, खालिस्तान मांग रहे हैं, लेकिन जो वहाँ पे इनोसेंट सिख है जिसका खोतिस्तान से कोई मतलब नहीं है, कोई लेन देन नहीं है, वो बेचारा फिर मारा जाएगा जैसे पहले मारा गया था. आपको चाहिए, आप मांगो, आप मरो. मेरे जैसा कोई मासूम इनोसेंट सिख क्यों मारा जाए? ये वीडियो मैंने डाल दिया मजे मजे में. अगले दिन तक 3 million views. I start getting death threats. Immediately 3 million views होते ही मुझे भी पागल हो गया. आई एम सेलिब्रिटी. नोट्स आ रहे, टक 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 टक, विल किल यू, टेक आउट द वीडियो, गद्दार है तू, यू आर एजेंट ऑफ इंडिया, अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग, लॉट ऑफ इट, विल डू दिस, टेक इट आउट. तो मैंने बेटी ने भी बोर्ड पढ़ रही थी, बेटी इज एक्टिव. पापा बोलती क्या? मैंने कहा दैट्स व्हाई आई वांट टू शो कि दीज आर द क्रिमिनल्स हु आर डूइंग सो. नॉट अ कॉमन ट्रू सिख विल नेवर डू दिस एंड थ्रेट अ फैमिली. शेर के ऊपर 10 कुत्ते अटैक करते हैं, वो आप शेर जाता है बाद में ढूंढने के लिए किस कुत्ते मेरे पे अटैक किया? नहीं ना. तो सिख वो कौम है, वो शेर कौम है, कभी बदला नहीं लेती है. तो आप लोग सिख नहीं हो, आप लोग सिखों को बदनाम कर रहे हो. अच्छा हो मैंने वीडियो डाली कि लोगों को मालूम चले कि सिख में, सच्चे सिख में और जो ये क्रिमिनल्स में क्या फ़र्क है. आप लोग पगड़ियाँ सर में फंसा के खुद को सिख कह रहे हो. उसके तुरंत बाद मैंने 1-2 वीडियो और डाली, हिट हो गई वो भी. और इनका फिर मेरे फ़ोन आना शुरू हो गए, वी नो वेयर यू वर्क, हम तो को मारने आ रहे हैं. कुछ दिनों बाद 5 लोगों ने हमला किया, रेस्टोरेंट पे आए, घुस गए, खालिस्तान के मनारे लगाए, वीडियो कैमरा साथ लेके आए कि माफ़ी मांग, मरना तो कुछ जान से मार देंगे, तेरे घर का एड्रेस ये, हम कल आ रहे हैं, माफ़ी मांग अभी. और इंडिया का फ्लैग जला, हिंदुस्तान मुर्दाबाद बोल, मोदी मुर्दाबाद बोल. मैंने कहा ये किस लिए? खुद खालिस्तान के लिए. मैं कहा खालिस्तान मांग रहे हो, गुंडा राज मांग रहे हो? मेरी बेटी वहीं थी, 18 साल की बेटी मासूमा खड़ी देख रही, मगर निडर खड़ी रही. मेरी बीवी वहाँ थी, साथ में 3 वो स्टाफ थी, लड़कियाँ थी, खड़ी रही. वो 5 चीज़ों गुंडागर्दी की. मेरे जो लोग खाना खा रहे थे रेस्टोरेंट पे, उनको उठा के बाहर फेंका सबको कि यहाँ खाना नहीं खाना. मैंने कहा ये खालसा राज नहीं हो सकता, ये गुंडा राज है जो आप मांग रहे हो. उसके बाद बड़ा कुछ हुआ, पुलिस की आई, पुलिस के कहने पे मैंने अपनी वीडियोस वापस उतार ली. मगर वीडियोस वापस उतारने के बावजूद भी उनकी ये थ्रेट्स नहीं कम हुए.
तो पुलिस ने आपसे कहा कि आप अपनी वीडियो उतारो?
हाँ जी.
पर ये लोग जो बोलते हैं इनकी वीडियोस चल रही हैं
जी,
वो ऐसा क्यों?
फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच.
तो उनका फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच है, आपका नहीं है? नहीं तो फिर आप ने कैसे रिएक्ट किया जब ये सब हुआ?
तो हमने बोला कि हमने तो कुछ गलत नहीं बोला, दिस इज अ रियलिटी बट वी सेड, और वो लोग गलत डाल रहे हैं, यंग जनरेशन को ख़राब कर रहे हैं। तो पुलिस ने कहा कि आपको अपनी फैमिली प्यारी है या आपको बोलना पसंद है?
ये पुलिस आपको कह रही है?
जी।
उनके खिलाफ क्यों एक्ट नहीं किया?
पुलिस अगर किसी को वहाँ पे अरेस्ट करती है, एक इंसान को किसी क्राइम के जुर्म में, उसको प्रोसिक्यूट करने का खर्चा ही कम से कम 20 से 50,000 पाउंड आता है एक बंदे को, चाहे क्राइम छोटा हो चाहे क्राइम बड़ा हो। और वो अटैक हुआ है एक भारतीय पे जिसका कलर ब्राउन है। मेरे पे क्यों खर्च करेंगे पैसा सेफ्टी के लिए? किसी को क्यों पकड़ेंगे वो?
पर आप तो यूके सिटीजन है, तो ये ब्राउन और ये कलर वाला इशू अभी भी चल रहा है वहाँ?
मैंने कभी देखा नहीं 26 साल में, लेकिन पहली बार मैंने देखा जब पिछले 9 महीनों में देख रहा हूँ। बिकॉज ऑफ आई थिंक माई कलर आई एम नॉट बीइंग सर्व जस्टिस।
पर वो भी तो जो कर रहे हैं उनको क्यों पुलिस सपोर्ट करेगी?
उनको नहीं पकड़ेगी, क्योंकि अगर पकड़ेगी, एक तो वो जो लोग हम पे हमला करने आते हैं पहले बोलते हैं कि पुलिस कुछ नहीं करेगी क्योंकि हमारी पे रोल पे है।
तो
वो खुलेआम बोलते हैं,
वो खुलेआम बोलते हैं
क्या वो नहीं आएगी और पुलिस आती भी नहीं है। एक बार नहीं कई बार हो चुका है।
ये सही कह रहे हैं?
बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं, वो हर बार फ़ोन करेंगे। पेरोल पे हमारे नहीं आएगी, करते रहो फ़ोन। और जब सेकंड अटैक हुआ था रेस्टोरेंट में, हम 4 घंटे तक फ़ोन कर रहे थे। आई थिंक 1 घंटे में बाद पुलिस आई थी, तो हमने बोला थैंक यू फॉर कमिंग। तो कहते हैं हम टेक अवे ऑर्डर करने आए हैं। क्या हुआ है?
They were not responding the call of our attack. Police came to order food. They were right. These criminals, they Khalistani, Khotistani criminals were right कि पुलिस नहीं आएगी, और उन्होंने आके खाने की डिमांड की मेरे से। मैंने जब मुझसे बोला कि आई पुट अ कॉल आउट फॉर दिस डिस्ट्रेस कॉल कि हम पे हमला हुआ है, बोलते हैं वी डोंट नो। फिर पूछा हुआ क्या, आई टुक द नेम कि किसने मेरे पे अटैक कराया है। पुलिस वाले की सिटी पिटी गुम हो गई जब मैंने नाम लिया उन लोगों का कि कौन लोगों ने मेरे हमला किया है। बोलते मैं अभी आता हूँ,
और
गायब हो गए।
ये ऐसे कौन लोग हैं जो इतने पावरफुल हैं कि पुलिस भी उनके नाम से घबराती है?
गैंगस्टर्स
हैं ये, जो खोतिस्तानियों के पेरोल पे गैंगस्टर्स हैं, जो उनके कहने पे काम करते हैं। जो लोग इनके खिलाफ बोलते हैं वो शुरू में जाते हैं उनकी आवाज़ बंद कराते हैं कि इनकी आवाज़ आगे ना जाए और हमारी राह के अंदर कोई रोड़ा ना अटकाए।
पर ये नाम आपने खोतिस्तानी क्यों चुना है?
खोतिस्तानी इसलिए चुना है क्योंकि ये खालिस्तान का नाम, जिसमें खालसा वर्ड डाला है। खालसा सब सिखों के लिए है। खालसा बहुत ही प्योर वर्ड है, बहुत शुद्ध वर्ड है। खालसे को पाने के लिए बहुत कुर्बानियाँ दी गई हैं। मेरे गुरु ने बहुत कुर्बानियाँ दी हैं इस खालसे शब्द के लिए। मैं सिख हूँ मगर मैं अभी तक खालसा नहीं बना। और वो कल के लड़के जो गालियाँ बकते हैं, जो लोग देते हैं रेप थ्रेट, जो कहते हैं कि मैं तेरी बेटी का बलात्कार करूँगा, आई विल नॉट अलाउ देम टू यूज़ खालसा वर्ड। आई विल नॉट। ये काम जो कर रहे हैं ये काम खोतों का है, तभी बोलता हूँ ये खोतिस्तानी है। तुम सिख भी नहीं हो, तुम सिख हो, SIC के बीमार लोग हो आप।
पर इनमें से सभी सिख हैं या कुछ वहाँ भी कोई गोरख धंधा है?
अच्छा आप एक बात बताओ मेरे को, अभी आप यहाँ बैठे हो
जी,
आप दाढ़ी रख लो, कड़ा पहन लो, पगड़ी पहन लो, कौन बता सकता है आप सिख हो या नहीं हो?
करेक्ट, नाम भी बदल ले सकते हैं। हाँ, कुछ भी नाम ले सकते हैं जी,
कुछ भी नाम ले सकते हो
जी।
हर कहीं हर कोई को आप आईडी थोड़ी दिखाओगे अपनी।
करेक्ट।
मेरे पे जो पहला अटैक हुआ उसके अंदर एक सरदार था, साथ में उसके 4 बंदे और थे, उनके सिर पगड़ी नहीं थी।
अच्छा।
अब मुझे नहीं पता वो किस धर्म के थे, किस जात के थे,
पर बोलते पंजाबी हैं।
पंजाबी बोलते हैं और ब्रिटिश इंग्लिश बोलते हैं।
हाँ।
हमको मालूम है क्या हो रहा है, मगर जो न्यू जनरेशन को ये भड़का रहे हैं, फुसला रहे हैं, ये कहते हैं कि मोदी साहब ने 84 के दंगे कराए, मोदी साहब ने सिखों पे जुल्म किए। गलत सिखा रहे हैं अब न्यू जनरेशन को। वो भी पढ़ाई लिखाई नहीं करती, चेक नहीं करती। जिस टाइम ये चला, आपने बोला जुल्म हुए, तो उस टाइम की चेक करो सरकार कौन थी। पंजाब में सरकार किसकी थी और हिंदुस्तान में सरकार किसकी थी? बीजेपी की थी उस टाइम, सीटें ही 2-4 थी उस टाइम। तो मोदी जी ने कैसे मारा? मोदी सरकार ने सिखों के खिलाफ आज तक मैंने देखा है 9 साल से एक भी कटु शब्द नहीं बोला। हेल्प की है। अफगानिस्तान से गुरु ग्रंथ साहब लेके आए हैं, वहाँ के सिखों को लेके आए हैं। क्यों सिर्फ पंजाब के सिख असलम मांगते हैं विदेशों में? बाकी हिंदुस्तान कैसे क्यों नहीं मांगते?
पर ये कौन से पंजाब से हैं ये भी तो मैं जानना चाहता हूँ। ये हिंदुस्तान वाले पंजाब से हैं या पाकिस्तान वाले पंजाब से हैं? ये पाकिस्तानी है, हिंदुस्तानी है? ये आपने कभी टेस्ट करने की कोशिश की है?
ये मिक्स ब्रीड है।
मिक्स ब्रीड है,
मिक्स ब्रीड है,
ये मिक्स ब्रीड है।
मिक्स ब्रीड है। और इसमें पाकिस्तानी ज़्यादा हैं, एजेंडा पाकिस्तानियों को ज़्यादा है कि आपको लगता है कि यहाँ से जो हिंदुस्तानी गए हैं उनकी जनरेशन भी ज़्यादा हैं?
उनकी जनरेशन है मगर साथ मिलके बहुत लोग मिले हुए हैं, क्योंकि जिन लोगों को हमने देखा है, हमने शिनाख्त की है, उनके अंदर कई सफ़ेद सामने रखा हुआ है उन्होंने। सिखों वाले जो हैं लोग,
हाँ,
जो सिख हैं, जो सामने बोल रहे हैं, जो छुप के बोल रहे हैं फेक आईडी के पीछे, वो किसी और धर्म के लोग हैं,
वो किसी और धर्म के लोग,
किसी और शहर के लोग हैं।
और ये उनकी असलियत निकल जाती है सामने।
हम निकालते हैं
जी जी। आप बस एक पिन मार दो,
हाँ,
एक वर्ड यूज कर दो, पिग,
हाँ,
सब कुछ निकल जाएगा
और सब निकल जाता है।
सब निकल जाता है।
पर ये कौन से प्लेटफॉर्म में करते हैं ये सब?
टिकटॉक।
ये सब टिकटॉक पे होता है?
टिकटॉक पे होता है।
पर टिकटॉक पर तो यूके में भी काफ़ी टफ लॉज हैं सोशल मीडिया पे। ऐसा
कुछ भी नहीं,
कुछ नहीं, बातें हैं,
सब बातें हैं।
आपने कंप्लेंट किया, आपने उनको वीडियोस दिखाई?
हमने उनको वीडियोस भेजी हैं। अगर अभी हम कंप्लेंट्स दिखाना शुरू करेंगे ना तो आप एक पूरी किताब छाप सकते हो इस चीज़ पे। हमने इतनी कंप्लेंट्स की हैं, हमने उन लोगों के एड्रेस दिए हैं, टेलीफोन नंबर्स दिए हैं, काम करने की जगह दिखाई है। सारी इन्वेस्टिगेशन तो हमने की है जो पुलिस को करनी चाहिए थी।
और पुलिस बोलती है हमको कि आपने इन्वेस्टिगेट किया है तो वी कैन नॉट यूज दिस एज एविडेंस। पुलिस को हमने सबूत दिए, पुलिस बोलती है कि वी कैन नॉट यूज दिस एज एविडेंस क्योंकि ये आपने दिए हैं, हमको खुद अपनी तहकीकात करके ये एड्रेस ढूंढेंगे तो हम उसको मानेंगे, अदरवाइज हम नहीं मानेंगे। जिस तरह अटैक किया उसकी फोटो दे रहा हूँ, ये आदमी ने मेरे पर अटैक किया है, ये आदमी इस एड्रेस पे रहता है, इस एड्रेस पे काम करता है, फिर भी पुलिस को अरेस्ट करने से खिंचा रही है। और वो आदमी हर रोज पुलिस के साथ खड़ा हुआ स्पीच दे रहा होता है जिसे मेरे पे अटैक किया है।
पर इतनी मिली भगत अगर इतना ओपनली और इतना ब्रेजनली, ये तो ये ग्राउंड पर जो क्लेम किया जाता है और ग्राउंड पर जो सिचुएशन है इसमें तो बहुत डिफरेंस है मैम। ये तो आई डोंट थिंक। तो आपको वहाँ कम्युनिटी से सपोर्ट मिलती है? ये लोग क्या किसी गुरुद्वारे से जुड़े हुए हैं या जो रिलीजियस इंस्टीट्यूशन है, क्या इनको वहाँ से सपोर्ट है?
इनको वहाँ से सपोर्ट है। इनके कुछ गुरुद्वारे हैं और उन्होंने कुछ अपनी खुली हैं संस्थाएं खोली हैं जहाँ पे ये युवा सिखों को ट्रेनिंग देते हैं कि जुर्म कैसे करने हैं बिना पकड़े जाए, सिखाते हैं आपने कैसे किस पे अटैक करना है और कितना अटैक करना है कि आपके ऊपर केस ना बने, सिखाया जाता है इनको बाखूबी। गुरुद्वारों में से इकट्ठा होकर रैली निकलती है प्रोटेस्ट की कि हाई कमिश्नर पे अटैक करना है कि हरमन पे अटैक करना है। मेरे पास सबूत हैं कि गुरुद्वारे से रैलियाँ निकल रही हैं और लोग बोल रहे हैं गुरुद्वारा विल पे फॉर योर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, गो टू इंडियन हाई कमीशन। सब खुला है, खुलेआम अपना सिख धर्म ये बेच रहे हैं कुछ पैसों के लिए। 8 महीने से गुरुद्वारे नहीं गया मैं, धमकियाँ आ रही है गुरुद्वारा आएगा अपनी मर्जी से, जाएगा हमारी मर्जी से। ये धमकियाँ आ रही है ऑनलाइन, प्रूफ पड़े मेरे पास, आएगा अपनी मर्जी से गुरुद्वारे, जाएगा हमारी मर्जी से। ये हाल है वहाँ गुरुद्वारों का।
पर लेकिन आपको वहाँ कम्युनिटी से सपोर्ट नहीं मिला?
सब डरते हैं। लोगों ने देखा है हमारे साथ, हमारे जैसे मेरी फ़ोटोज़ लगाई हैं, मेरी बेटी की फ़ोटोज़ रोज़ लगाते हैं, तो सब देखते हैं ना कौन आएगा आगे, आप बताओ।
पर ये कहा जाता है कि लार्जर कम्युनिटी तो इनके सपोर्ट में नहीं है, तो अगर लार्जर कम्युनिटी खड़ी हो जाएगी तो इनका तो कुछ होगा।
सब पाउंड कमाने में लगे हुए हैं।
किसको चाहिए ये सिरदर्दी? मैंने बोल दिया, अब मैं खड़ा हूँ, मैंने स्टैंड लिया, मैं खड़ा हूँ। इनकी गलती क्या हुई? मैं हट जाता। इनकी गलती क्या की इन खुदसारियों ने? इन्होंने मेरे घर पे अटैक कर दिया। ये गाड़ी वाला अटैक दूसरा है, इससे पहले 23 मार्च की रात को मेरे घर पे अटैक किया था।
आपके घर पे भी अटैक किया?
हाँ,
तो ये दूसरी बार आपके घर तो रेस्टोरेंट पे पहुंचे वो अलग,
वो 22 मार्च को किया।
हाँ।
इवन पुलिस हमारे घर के आसपास घूम रही है, उसके बावजूद 23 मार्च को उन्होंने मेरे घर के बाहर अटैक किया खुलेआम। उन्होंने गलती ये की,
5 अटैक।
गलती इनकी ये हुई, मेरे घर पे नहीं आना था आपको। मेरे रेस्टोरेंट पे आए, हमले किए, कोई बात नहीं, मेरे घर पे नहीं आना था।
और ये वाले भी इसीलिए, गाड़ी का भी इसलिए किया क्योंकि हमने बोला था कि घर नहीं आना चाहिए था, तो दोबारा घर आए हैं
और दोबारा घर पे आके ये
किया
और ये करके गए हैं
जी।
और क्या अब आप पे प्रेशर है कि इसको पेंट वेंट करा के ठीक करा दो?
नहीं करवाएंगे।
पुलिस बोल रही है कब ठीक करा रहे हो? मैंने बोला हाँ, मैंने कहा भैया ये तो ऐसी रहेगी अब,
क्योंकि पुलिस ने चेक भी नहीं किया ना कि कौन सी बुलेट लगी है, या कोई सैंपल लिया हो।
फायर भी करके गए, सिर्फ पेंट ही नहीं, बुलेट
बुलेट का मार्क गाड़ी पे है, मुझे शक है बुलेट का मार्क है गाड़ी पे देखा जाए तो।
हाँ।
पुलिस ने अभी तक किसी टीम को नहीं भेजा चेक करने के लिए। मैं सच बोल रहा हूँ कि झूठ बोल रहा हूँ?
हाँ।
ये बुलेट मार्क है, रबड़ बुलेट मार्क है, मिसाइल है कि पत्थर है, पुलिस आज तक चेक करने नहीं आई है इसको।
पर ये तो वैंडलिज्म है ना हरमन जी। पर आपने ये भी कहा कि अगर आप हरमन की जगह कोई और होते, हरमन होते,
अगर मैं हरमन स्मिथ होता,
हरमन स्मिथ होते, हाँ,
तो आज ये सबके सब जेल की सलाखों के पीछे होते।
तो ये आप ओपनली आप कह रहे हैं कि ये डिस्क्रिमिनेशन
मेरे से बीत रहा है, आप बीती है। 9 महीने से मैं जिंदगी जो जी रहा हूँ, 9 महीने से भाई रोज रोते रात को। जिसकी बेटी की फोटो रोज रात को टांगोगे आप, रेप थ्रेड दोगे, ये अपने कमरे में रोती है, मैं पीछे जाके रोता हूँ रोज। बेटी अपने रूम में रोती है, मैं भुगत रहा हूँ। मैं देख रहा हूँ उत्पीड़ना क्या होती है एक बाप की, एक माँ की। मैं अपने बच्चे के लिए लड़ रहा हूँ। माफ़ी मांगना 1 मिनट का काम, माफ़ी मांग खत्म हो गई। लेकिन ये जो लोग सिखों को बदनाम कर रहे हैं, मैं नहीं देख सकता। आज मेरी बेटी के साथ हुआ ये, कल किसी और बेटी के साथ ये करे और जाके किसी घर जाके किसी का रेप करे। पुलिस ने कुछ नहीं करना, लेकिन एक बाप हो, लड़ाई तो करनी
पर
पड़ेगी।
आपको कम्युनिटी से सपोर्ट नहीं मिला?
डर है उनको। जो मेरा हाल देख रहे हो क्या हो रहा है,
हाँ।
धंधा चौपट हो गया है मेरा। लोग खाना खाने नहीं आते, रेस्टोरेंट बंद करना पड़ा। रेस्टोरेंट
बंद करना पड़ा?
बंद करना पड़ा
आपका
रेस्टोरेंट।
तो बहुत अच्छा सक्सेसफुल रेस्टोरेंट था।
हाँ, जब से इनके साथ मेरी बातचीत शुरू हो गई, रिव्यूज डालते हैं ऑनलाइन जाके, खाने में चूहे निकले हैं, खाने में कीड़े निकले हैं,
सब झूठ।
साफ सुथरा ऑनलाइन दिखा रहे क्या डालना है।
अगर खाने
टोटल
में
क्लास
चूहा
चल रही है।
निकले तो गवर्नमेंट आपको रेस्टोरेंट खोलने कैसे देगी? फूड हाइजीन वाले आपको रेस्टोरेंट खोलने देंगे?
पर ये तो खुले आम ब्रेजन इंटिमिडेशन है, किसी की लाइफ को बर्बाद करने का। ये
फ्रीडम
तो
ब्रिटिश
लॉ
चाहिए। फ्रीडम सर जी गलत बोल रहे हैं आप गलत बोल के रह रहे हैं, आपको मालूम नहीं है। इंग्लैंड में दिस इज फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच। एक फैमिली मैन को तबाह करना, उस पर हमले करना, उसकी बेटी को रेप थ्रेट देना, रात को लगाना बोली कि बेटी की शादी करोगे तो बीवी दहेज में लेके जाओ साथ में। ये लगती है बोलियां, ये खालिस्तानी जो कहते हैं हम सिख हैं लगाते हैं बोलियां, बेटी को लेके जाएंगे शादी में दहेज में मां को। ये रोज सहता हूं मैं।
और कहते हैं कि जाओ अपने मोदी को बुलाओ कि तुम्हें बचाए।
पर आप तो ब्रिटिश सिटीजन हैं। अभी तो ऋषि सुनक को चाहिए कि आपको बचाए, मेट्रोपॉलिटन पुलिस को चाहिए कि आपको बचाए। वो तो अपने आप को दुनिया के सबसे टॉप पुलिस और बेस्ट पुलिस कहती है।
क्योंकि हम इंडिया का फ्लैग नहीं जलाते, हम मोदी मुर्दाबाद नहीं बोलेंगे, तो इसीलिए कहते हैं जाओ अपने मोदी को बुलाओ तुम्हें बचाएं।
और आज मैं इंटरव्यू दे रहा हूं, अगर सुन रहे होंगे यूके वाले, वापस जाऊंगा, हर तरह से मेरे प्रेशर डालेंगे, मेरे पे 10 इन्वेस्टिगेशन डालेंगे मेरे को चुप कराने के लिए। मुझे मालूम है, अब मैं बोल रहा हूँ यूके के खिलाफ क्योंकि मैं दुखी पीड़ित हूँ। आई एम योर सिटीजन ऋषि सोनक, इफ यू आर लिसनिंग, आई एम सिटीजन ऑफ यूके, माई किड्स आर बोर्न इन यूके। मुझे 9 महीने से न्याय नहीं मिला, दर दर की ठोकरें खा रहा हूँ, भीख मांग रहा हूँ, मुझे न्याय नहीं मिला यूके के अंदर रह के। इससे अच्छा किसी और मुल्क में रह लेता, मैं जंगल में जाकर रह लेता।
एक तो मैं आपकी हिम्मत की दाद देता हूँ, नो मैम, फ्रैंकली मैं भी बाप हूँ और किसी पेरेंट को ये नहीं होना चाहिए। और जो आपने कहा ना कि फैमिली पर हाथ रखना और ये इंटिमिडेशन पर, अगर आप ये कह रहे हैं कि पुलिस उनके साथ है, उनको इस तरीके का प्रोटेक्शन मिल रहा है, यानी कि ये तो बहुत डीप रूटेड हो गया ना हरमन जी। आपने भी तो समझने की कोशिश की होगी कि ये कौन लोग हैं।
वो खुद कह रहे हैं पुलिस हमारे साथ है, हमारे पेरोल पे,
खुद बोलती है।
हम नहीं कह रहे, वो खुद कह रहे हैं।
2 बार
हो रहा है,
2 बार सिक्योरिटी हटी घर से पुलिस की। सिक्योरिटी हटने के तुरंत बाद अटैक हुए हैं।
अब की बार भी आपको एक पैनिक अलार्म
दिया, जो 10 दिन पहले हटाया। मैंने बोल दिया खुशी को खुशी अटैक होने वाला है। पैनिक अलार्म फट गया, पैनिक अलार्म फटा, धमकी आना फिर शुरू हुई और ये अटैक हो गया। उससे पहले मार्च में भी ऐसा हुआ कि पुलिस नहीं आएगी, हम आ रहे हैं, और आकर उन्होंने अटैक किया और पुलिस नहीं आई। मेरे घर के एड्रेस, मेरे काम के एड्रेस, मेरे बच्चों के स्कूल का एड्रेस, कॉलेज का एड्रेस, गाड़ियों के नंबर ऑनलाइन सब डाले हुए हैं। कहा गया जाके उनको मारो, रेप करो, वी आर विद यू।
मैंने अपनी डिटेक्टिव को एक ईमेल की थी कि अगर हम 4 लोगों की फैमिली को कुछ भी होता है तो यू आर द रिस्पॉन्सिबल, बिकॉज लास्ट 6 months तुमने कुछ नहीं किया। तो आफ्टर दैट आई अटेंड वन कॉल, क्योंकि हमारी डिटेक्टिव एक वुमेन है, मैं नाम नहीं लूँगी इसका, तो फिर एक मैन का मुझे फ़ोन आया कि यू ईमेल दिस, दैट्स नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल। तो मैंने बोला कि तुम कुछ नहीं कर रहे हो, सुबह से आज 12-12 घंटे मेरी डॉटर की पिक्चर लगी होती है।
Good evening, this is Brass Tax. I'm Zaka Jacob. The offices of the news portal NewsClick were raided today by the Delhi Police Special Cell. Over 100 locations were searched in Delhi, the wider National Capital Region and Mumbai. The Delhi Police has put out a statement just moments ago saying that over 30 individuals associated with NewsClick, many of them journalists, contributors, editors, were questioned today in various locations in either their residence or offices, or some of them were even brought to the Delhi Police Special Cell stations. Now, the question that is being asked, and many questions are being asked to all of these journalists who are part of NewsClick, who are contributors to NewsClick. Many of their mobiles and laptops have been seized. The founder, Prabir Purkayastha, has just been arrested moments ago, along with an HR executive. Delhi police sources are saying that the investigation, this current investigation and these raids today, were born from an FIR